Hey everybody, we're living in the now, broadcasting from Toronto, Canada, home of the Blue Jays, Raptors, Maple Leafs, and Canadian psychic Robert Lindsy Milne. That's me. Welcome to episode number 2 of My Side of the Crystal Ball. We've got a barn burner for you today. Starting off with WWRS, What Would Robert Say? And joined by my co-host on WWRS, Lucia Maria Kloster, and she's going to be asking me a couple of more questions about how to be psychic, can people be psychic, what's being psychic. That's about 15-minute segment, just like last podcast. So that's going to be on shortly. Second segment is with the leader of the High Vibe Tribe and the Heartshift Coach, Marcy Neumann, one of the most evolved, beautiful, spiritual beings that I have had the privilege and honor to meet. I was on Marcy's podcast a few months ago, and she's honored me by joining me on my podcast as well. She's got so much to say, and I can hardly wait to hear all her questions. But before we get to these two fabulous and exciting episodes, I have a request. If you're watching us on YouTube, could you please write a comment, and subscribe to our channel? And incidentally, subscriptions are complimentary. That means they're free. So you just say, click, we subscribe. And you can find us on Apple, Spotify, and any other place where major podcast sites are. If you're looking for me personally, you can connect with me, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and my website, www.robertlindsymilne.com. And just remember, I'm still doing readings, and I've got the odd appointment or two that's available. And now, without further ado, WWRS is about to start. Now, the next thing about being psychic, and this is really important too, and that is you have to have had some type of experience with something before you could see it. So, for example, unless somebody understood or was aware of the concept of E equals MC squared, unless you not understood it, but just had an awareness of it, you wouldn't be able to recognize it. And the reason for that is because we sense things, our unconscious mind compares it to what we already know. And it compares it to the closest, the thing that is most similar. So our unconscious mind, we see things, and in order for us to experience sorrow, we've had to be sad. In order for us to know joy, we've had to be joyful. In order to feel accomplished, to see accomplished, we've had to feel it or experience it. And the same with feel. So we need to have an experience with something, or an awareness, or an understanding. So when we tune into something in somebody that's obvious to us, what's being triggered is our unconscious connection to that thought or that experience. It might not be exactly what that person is experiencing. It could be similar to. And that's where interpretation comes in. And that's where in saying things, although specific, in an open-ended way. So it appears like in this time period, there's a difference in the way you're earning and making your money. So that's another way to say you could be changing a job or getting a job. So, but that way, instead of saying this is what it absolutely is from what I think, I'm explaining the concept and then keeping it open-ended so that others can interpret it their way. And that's part of the skill. But that just takes doing readings over and over and over and over and over again, and practicing and practicing and practicing. Now, somebody that takes that seminar, I guarantee they're going to be doing psychic readings for a stranger in the class. And I guarantee that if not, and they did all the exercises, which were pretty simple, then they'd get their money back. Actually, if anybody complained, they got their money back. But it didn't happen very often. So upon completion of the class, they are nowhere near as good as I am at being psychic. And the reason for that was, by the time I was 20, 21, 22 years old, I had already been close to my 10,000 hours of doing readings. I worked at the tea room in Toronto, and I saw people some days as many as 30, 35, and some days 20. But it was like that all the time. So I worked doing readings over and over and over and over and over again. And I got used to recognizing how I felt. I got used to it. And I also learned what it felt like when I was wrong and when I was right. Now, the only way you can do that is by doing it over and over and over and over again. And then, so even with a professional psychic, maybe someone that does tarot cards, or maybe somebody that is an intuitive psychic palm reader, or as they sophisticated, a chironomist, right? The readers of the hand. Originally, palm reading, well, I think in Count Louis Hammond was a chironomist, and what he would do is he would take an imprint of people's hands, and he would study it with a magnifying glass. So and that is a science. Perhaps pseudoscience. That is a science where if you have this line, it means that. But those that instead of reading the book would just have a little bit of knowledge about the lines, could hold somebody's hand. And by the way, when you hold an object, when you hold an object, it's called psychometry. Psychometry, and that's how it's spelled. So you can have a key or hold something from somebody, and you can feel the vibes from it, and then you can tune into it. Anytime I got stuck when I was doing, tuning into somebody, I would just ask them to shake hands with me for the moment, and then I would feel their energy rather than taking their keys or whatever. So there's a skill. So you get used to feeling an energy, becoming more and more comfortable with it, and again becoming aware of what's obvious. So you can do. I know people that say they are astrologists, and they may very well have a basic awareness of being as an astrologer, but they'll just look at the chart and then they'll use that to tune in to become more psychic. Lots of people have those mediums. I've never used a medium. I've just always done it the way we've talked about. So how does that feel now?
So I have a quick question then.
Hope I have a quick answer.
Do you think it's easier to do it in person then, when you're talking about people's energy and shaking their hand? Or do you think it's just as easy doing it over a Zoom call or a telephone?
When I was in my very early days, when I left the tea room and was working and worked on my own, I stopped using a medium then I did at the tea room, because in those days in Toronto, or those days in Canada, it was against the law. It was called the Witchcraft Act. You couldn't. It was against the law to do psychic readings and a couple other things. And by the way, that law was revoked about. It was July 1st, 2018. By the way, that was when that was. Yeah, you heard it right. Yes. So the tea rooms the tea rooms would sell people a sandwich and a cup of tea and cookies, and they would get a complimentary tea leaf reading and a complimentary card reading. And really, what the people were coming for was the reading, not the tea, and not the card reading, or sorry, the tea and not the cookies or the sandwich. But the tea rooms in those days got around the law, and there was a big sign on the wall that say, all readings are for entertainment purposes only. So when I left the tea room, I just stopped using a medium because I never did. Is it easier? Well, for me, it was easier. For me, any other way other than just looking at somebody was ponderous. It was slow, and when I tune in, I think most people, if they can learn the technique, the energies flow, the information comes in faster and clearer than putting cards down or holding, looking in a crystal ball, or reading tea leaves or coffee grinds or bones. Or there was even one time when I left the tea room but wasn't doing so well. There was a couple of folk houses, bars that near where I lived, and I would go there and do beer foam readings for $5 or something. And what I would do is put the beer in front of me, and I would look at the foam. Well, I never read that. I drank it, but I never read it. I just used it as a medium. I never really used, other people could have read beer foams and interpreted it, but I just, again, tuned into the person. So for me, the any other way was slow. And what's great is when I meet someone that is been doing a lot of readings with tarot cards or any other form of scrying, SCRIING, I believe it's spelled. Scrying. If I can convince them to put their tarot cards down and do it the way I've just described, and learn how to do that consciously, and then apply it with their the medium they use, they'll get even better and better and better. And I also think that when people are using a medium, being knowing a whole lot about tarot or a whole lot about palmistry, like chironomy, or you'll be able to do even more by using your instincts and intuition. For me, it's always been easier just to talk and just to speak.
Okay.
So what do you think about that?
Well, that's really interesting. I was under the impression that you had to do a lot of meditating, and then, but I forget about that initial intuitive thing that happens when you, that split second where something comes through. I forget about that.
Now, if you absolutely believe that you have to meditate before you can do readings, then you will have to meditate before you can do readings. But if you believe you don't have to, then you don't have to. So it's all about you. It's all about getting in touch with what's going on inside. So in the old days when I worked at the tea room, seeing like 20 or 35 people, in between that amount, I would see one person after the other, after the other, after the other. So I wouldn't need time to tune in, and because I was younger, and throughout my life, even up until I was in my late 40s, I was doing 12 readings every day. And at the end of the day, I would then do another 10-minute telephone calls. And that's what I would do 5 days a week, or even 6 days a week, so I would go from one client to another, to another, to another. At this stage in my life, when I'm doing readings, I'm doing it a whole lot slower, and I see things broader and on deeper levels than I've ever. And doing something for 56 years is, you get a lot of experience. So I go slower. I see things and that's called, because I'm older, I see things on a deeper, broader level than ever before, and on levels I never even imagined occurred. And then, so at this time, I will spend 20 minutes or a half an hour thinking about the reading I'm going to do. Now, the preparation may not be sitting cross-legged, burning incense and chanting Om or whatever. I've never done that. So what I'll do is just think about the person. And what I might do is play solitaire on the computer at the same time thinking about them. And then when it comes time to do their video reading, then when it comes time, I'm ready to do it. So I do have I do prepare now, but I'm also doing readings on a deeper level, broader, farther, and I see a whole lot more. And I go slower. So I just use that. And I'm not doing 12 readings a day. I would do 3 now. That works out to about 500, 600 readings a year. Whereas in other years, when my prime, I was doing 3,000, 500 sessions a year, maybe more. I do prepare, but they're also, the phone can ring or something, and I can be ready to go in 10 seconds. So it depends on the situation.
Okay, so do you actually connect into their energy? Do you have
I tune into
spirit
me.
guides? You tune into you. Okay.
I tune into me. Now, I seldom relate to spirits, not because I don't believe. It's a slow process. That it's slower, and I was always being into the moment, and the half-hour readings I did until I was late 40s, today would take me an hour to do. It just came out faster. They wouldn't be as detailed. The concepts would be the same. So again, the question was what? I just sort of got.
I was asking if you connected to the other person's energy, or if you had spirit guides that you worked with, or God, or
right. I never believed in spirit guides or things like that until a while ago, and I'm not really sure who my spirit guides are, or if I have any, but that doesn't mean that other people don't have them, or other people, when they say they see them, it doesn't mean that they don't see them. It means that I'm not really seeing it. And mostly because my skills were developed and honed on the street, and they were raw, pure survival instincts. So I didn't have time to meditate or go into an altered state and talk to my spirit guides to know what I should do if this guy's chasing me with a knife. I would have to do something different. Okay, so I was always ready and focused. Okay, and again, it comes down to just getting used to doing it over and over and over again. It's practice. Now, there are some people that choose to do and have a spiritual bent to it as well, but you don't have to be spiritual. Now, when we think of being spiritual on a traditional level, we think of being spiritual as positive. Well, that's not always true. So somebody who believes in Satan, it would be a follower. They would be on an equal spiritual level as somebody who believes in angels or believes in Jesus or believes in Krishna, or and they would be on the same level, but the opposite. So they could do a reading, that negative person, and could do a spiritual reading. It just may not necessarily be positive. Although, just like those that are positive when do readings, sometimes you talk about negative things. So being spiritual can help being psychic, but the bottom line is being psychic is natural and normal for humans and mammals. It's how we made it out of the caves. It is absolutely delightful to see you today, Marcy. I see on Facebook and some of your promotional material, you describe yourself as a Heartshift Coach.
Right.
And you also have the High Vibe Tribe group as well. I have experienced your ability to shift hearts. Just being around you, you do it. And I'm wondering, have you been doing that all your life?
That's a wonderful question. And I would probably say yes. And I think it comes from, this awareness that I've had ever since I was a child, that I had a different perception of things. And that different perception, of course, always created a little bit of controversy between, my friends and I, and or adults or teachers or whoever I came in contact with.
How did it manifest?
I'm sorry?
How does that happen that got you into conflict or I'm sure praise as well?
I'm not even using the word conflict in a negative way. Okay. What I'm saying is that they were conflicted. And so because very often people see things in one way. But as I said, my perception of myself, the world, and the fact that I was a part of something that was greater than myself, and yet I was a very important part of it. And I remember having these thoughts as a child, and it gave me a different perspective. For instance, when I was a child, I had a couple of spontaneous past life visions. And I knew that they were as real as could be. And in fact, one of them, I actually was physically in the imagery with some other people around me. And it was an amazing thing, and I'm just going to share it very quickly, please, so you can get a clear picture of what would happen for me. So this was just after Christmas. I was probably about 9 years old. And my neighbor had gotten this beautiful pair of figure skates, white leather figure skates. Now, I'm dating myself when I tell you that the only skates that I had were the kind that we strapped onto our boots. And so to see these white leather figure skates, I remember my jaw dropped and my heart started to pound in my chest. And she so graciously offered me an opportunity to try them. And I remember sitting on the edge of the pond in the snow, lacing them up, and my heart accelerating. And all of a sudden, I got up on those skates and I started to see myself as a woman. And I was ice dancing with a partner. I was wearing this chiffon costume, and the man that I was ice dancing with was wearing a tuxedo, and we were performing. And all of a sudden,
Yes.
I mean, I am ice dancing by myself, okay? But all of a sudden, I start to hear the other kids laugh. And somebody says, Marcy, what are you doing? And the moment that that happened, the spell was broken and I fell flat on my butt. I couldn't skate on them. And so I was trying to tell everybody like what was happening. And of course, they just laughed me to death. But this was a kind of thing that I experienced actually a number of times during my childhood. And so
you had those visualizations.
Yes. Yeah. I saw myself in other circumstances as another physical being. Some were male, some were female. But anyway, that's
fascinating. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yes, keep going.
No, I was just going to say that those sorts of experiences gave me a very unique perspective. I also had a different knowingness about spiritual realms and truths. And, I actually was asked to leave my confirmation class. And because I was constantly asking questions, because nothing that I was being taught felt right to me. I could feel that there was a false belief connected to it. So fast forward.
Was that about religion? Is that? Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
It was about religion, and it was about the religious dogma that was conflicting with what I knew was true. And that was that God is a God of love and not a God of vengeance. And
you figured, how old were you?
To make my confirmation, I would say, I'm not certain now, but I would say, I know I was in middle school. So maybe 11, 12 years old. Yeah.
That's
but I was
profound to be seeing those things. Well, yeah. That's profound.
Yeah.
So they try to beat that out of you? I don't mean physically.
Well, it was discouraged, but
yeah.
I'm also very tenacious, and you might even call it stubborn in a lot of ways. And I was relying on what felt right, and that didn't feel right. And it's always been something I have relied on heavily, how things feel. And so, fast forward when I was then a teenager, and I became sort of the go-to person from my friends. And then also what started to happen is I became often a go-to person for their parents when they had things that they just wanted to talk about and kind of work out in their own mind.
I'm awestruck by the power of your story and the similarity of experience. Details are different, but the concepts are the same.
Yes.
When did you realize that you were a healer in your own right, or did you, or have you?
So, yes. So what happened was I was in high school, and again, my level of consciousness and awareness was very different. I just had a knowingness about healing and that it takes place on many different levels. And through a very strange unfolding, I ended up leaving. When I left high school, I went to nursing school. I had never wanted to be a nurse my whole life. It never occurred to me. But the truth was that I had gone to a party where there were lots of interns and medical students And I thought, oh my God, they're so cute. And I had so much fun. I decided to go to nursing school. So it wasn't long into my nursing school experience where I realized that it wasn't the whole picture. And I entered into an ordination program through a spiritualist church. And there I was trained in hands-on healing, mediumship, and channeling. So this was back in the early 70s. So here I was, this young woman just coming into my professional career and having two very different credentials as a registered nurse and a spiritualist minister. But of course, Spirit knew what it was doing. And it very quickly unfolded into me having the most incredible opportunities to be a liaison, a bridge between those two worlds of conventional healing and metaphysical healing. And so it's just been an incredible, incredible experience in this lifetime.
So you were what, in your early 20s when,
Yeah.
So you were going to the spiritual. Marcy, I did similar things. I'm flabbergasted. There are similarities. I did as well. I got kicked out of the spiritualist church, but that's another story. Well, not kicked out. I just wasn't part of the group. But I'm astonished at the similarities in what I have experienced in the early days and what you did. When did you start becoming a teacher?
I have always been a teacher. I have always been a teacher, not necessarily in a classroom, but I've always been a teacher. And again, I have to go back to my unique perspective was something that people wanted to know about. And so every conversation was, in fact, sort of a teaching session. And, when someone was coming to me with an inquiry, there was always something to be taught. And so I would say I've been a teacher probably my whole life long. In the same way that I was learning and unfolding, I was sharing it. It came very naturally to me. But
so what I was really asking is, when did you know that's what you were doing? Teaching.
I think I always knew.
You knew. It's just sort of.
I knew. And then in nursing school, we would have to do these workshops and presentations and everything. And it was so natural for me. And again, I just had a different way of looking at things. And it was always with a very creative flair to it. And so even in nursing school, I became the person that people would come to for ideas about how to teach what they needed to teach, how to present this or create this kind of a workshop. And as well as my teachers, they would say, oh, I know Marcy is going to have a good idea about that.
So I'm just stuck here for a minute because I've been so fascinated by what you're saying. I forgot some of the questions I wanted to ask you. This is you've had a fascinating life. How did you stay so positive?
I'm going to answer that on a couple of levels. First off, I have to blame my astrological sign.
Okay.
I'm a Sagittarius.
Okay.
And we are the ultimate optimists.
Oh, I didn't know that about Sagittarius.
Yes.
Really,
we are, probably to a fault, Robert, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I have this natural propensity. The moment I have any negativity come in, I immediately am flipping it. I'm flipping it to see the positive. I'm flipping it to understand it in a different way. All of these things. And I think it definitely has been a detriment in some cases because it creates a tenacity where, I've lingered too long sometimes in situations because of that optimism, always having, and this is how I describe it, I have an ability to see things already in their wholeness. And so I just know that it's a matter of a little of this, a little of that, a recalibration here, a recalibration there. And we come into our wholeness. So when I see things, I see them in their wholeness. And of course, it doesn't take into...
I'm sorry, got it. When you say see things in their wholeness,
yeah,
what does that mean when you say in their wholeness? What would that mean to somebody that doesn't see how would you explain it to someone who doesn't see the wholeness?
I see the diamond form.
Okay.
I see all the rough edges having been, ground out, and I see the light and the facets that come forward when a diamond has been shaped so that you can see its ultimate beauty. That's how I see things. I see things, you might say I might see things in their future form, but I don't see it in the future. I see it right now.
I know that one.
Yeah. And so like we were having a conversation, for instance, before we started, and you had mentioned that I said something that made you realize that I was sort of transcending timelines.
Yes, that's true.
And that's how I live. I don't even recognize it as, again, being futuristic. I see it as it is in its truth, in the whole truth of its expression.
What does it feel like to have that kind of awareness? What's
joyous.
that like? Is it?
It's joyous. Yeah. It's joyous, and it is, I'm always in awe. And also I'm in recognition that, I'm here to help people to realize that for themselves. In other words, in forms of self-actualization, self-realization, and in accepting themselves as whole already, and just working to let go of the parts that have, kept it separate from recognition.
Your words really just overwhelm me, and I get thrown off topic by I just spellbound by the way that you're expressing things. I followed your forgiveness. I'm not sure if I can say campaign, but I watched the process of your forgiveness campaign, each one. What inspired you to do that?
So, my focus is in teaching self-love, and it's a prelude to being able to heart shift. So let me just give, for people listening, first off, my description of self-love is when we recognize who we are as a divine being, and we have cultivated the courage to take the actions that are in alignment with that. So self-love to me is all about, number one, recognizing who we are. Number two, being courageous enough to live that in this world that would have you do otherwise. Heart shifting is taking all of that energy that has been released through that release of separation and learning how to transform and transcend so that you now have access to it to manifest the life and the world that you want and deserve to be living in. So the process is twofold. It's learning what self-love is, learning how to integrate that into your life and take aligned action, and then taking the energy and recalibrating it to the frequency that has the potential to create what you want to experience. So as my focus is on self-love, what I've found now being in this work for over 45 years is that people, the greatest hang up that people have is in forgiveness. And it's no fault of theirs, because as children, we're always taught, you must forgive, you must forgive.
Right.
You know, and you have that finger wagging at you and this fear of going to hell if you don't, or, you know, being burned at the stake or something, right? When in fact, no one actually tells us how to forgive.
Because what is forgiveness?
Forgiveness.
Yes.
And that's the whole point, Robert. Forgiveness isn't some obscure, you know, abstract concept that is off in the distance. It's just allowing ourselves to surrender and let go of the false beliefs that are keeping us separate from ourselves.
So somebody does me wrong and I am angry with them or bitter or whatever those negative feelings are. Now, what do I do to forgive that person? Like, why should I forgive that person?
Yeah.
Because forgiving means like I accept what they do, and that. How do I do that?
Yeah, great question. Which is why I've created a whole course teaching people what to do. But in a nutshell, what has to happen is you need to realize that whatever that incident is, that person, that, you know, perpetrator, whatever it is, they need to go up on a shelf for a bit.
Okay.
We need to come inside, because the only change that can ever occur on the outside must first happen on the inside. So we have to explore first, what part of us what part of us is connected to a false belief about ourselves, that we co-created that situation. There is never anything that's done to us. Everything is a co-creation. So let's say, for instance, you have somebody who has betrayed you.
Yes.
Okay. And this has created a lot of trauma and pain and suffering, et cetera, et cetera. When we put that aside and we start to explore where you have been the perpetrator in your own life, meaning how have you betrayed yourself? What happens is we then can follow the threads. As that energy was projected out, it was responded to by the universe, bringing a person or a situation or an incident that would match it. So when I'm working with a client, for instance, and, you know, for instance, we're looking at things like betrayal, we must start inside. How are you betraying yourself? Because we do it all the time without even recognizing it. You know, throwing ourselves under the bus, acquiescing our power, you know, contorting to become what other people want and expect us to be. That's self-betrayal. And that energy is powerful.
Yes,
because
yes.
Your higher self is always constantly calling to you to follow it, which means that you are betraying the very messages that are sent to you to guide you to your own happiness.
Wow.
And so it doesn't take long at all to discover where that comes from and how. And then you recognize, oh my goodness, I'm the one who offered that energy to the universe, and the universe, not punishing me, but answering my request, simply sent back, which it always does, by the way, in the form of an experience. We send energy out in a wave, it comes back to us in the form of experience. The universe always responds with experience.
Okay, that's, wow. All right. Where did you learn that? How did you?
It came through me, of course, with my own life experience, and continuing to commit to creating a higher level of awareness about what I was doing, what I was creating. And of course, the universe brought me lots and lots of clients to bring me evidence that this is how it works.
So, okay. All right, now we have to
pivot.
It's okay. I really am blown away by your insights. You are clearly a highly evolved being. I just have to catch my breath for a moment and come back. Been so fascinated by how you've seen things, or how you see things. Are you this good in your own personal life, like in the off hours?
So I've gotten much better. Obviously,
oh, have you? Yeah.
It's difficult for us to see our own stuff.
Oh yeah.
But I'm constantly in process. When I recognize that I am contracting, I notice it first. I can feel my energy field contracting. When that happens, I know that somewhere I'm out of alignment. I am not open, expanded, and aligned with source. So if I'm contracting, it's my job, my responsibility to figure out how and where and why. And then I go to work. It's always connected to some false belief, typically around somewhere where, and we all have these same issues, okay? We just have to recognize how the ego disguises itself to bring them in and try to control us. So the issues are typically about abandonment, about not being enough, about not being lovable, all of that. And those always point to us having forgotten who we are. We are the God consciousness being expressed in the world. So if I have any of those thoughts or manifestations of those thoughts, I know that it's an energetic misalignment with my truth and who I am. So for me, because I may miss it, right? I might not recognize that ego, depending on how well it's disguised. I've learned to just respond energetically, where sometimes I'll see it immediately. And when I don't, I know it's not important. All I need to do is start to readjust my energy, which means I have to bring more light in and raise my frequency. And that's what I do.
I remembered what I was going to ask you about, but we're on the same, the same line anyway. When you were talking about forgiveness and sending the energy out to the universe, and the universe will send back an experience.
Yes.
Is that a form of manifesting?
Yes.
So you send the energy out, and then the energy comes back. So you think, so you are, so you become. Is that the concept? What you put out comes back.
Yes.
So if I am in a bad,
like a boomerang.
Okay, so like if I'm in an angry mood, a bad mood, and I project it, and when I am in an angry mood or a bad mood, even if I'm not yelling at somebody, that energy is going out and it comes back. So I'm manifesting it. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Because the universe reads energy, not words. Yes, words have energy that are an aspect of them, but the energetic force is the force that we actually project. So I'm sure, Robert, that you've been, with people who,
yes,
they've tried to disguise themselves to you. Let's say, for instance, I know that this has happened to me. I imagine it's happened to you as well, where you meet somebody and it's almost as if you can feel the hair on the back of your neck stand up.
Absolutely.
But they are just smiling away and, being, the most congenial person in the world. And then all of a sudden you start to really listen to their conversation. And at the base of this is such anger or jealousy or some sort of a repression, right? You can feel that there is a lack of alignment between how they are portraying themselves and who they are energetically. So our task is to be integrous with our inward and outward portrayal. Okay. So of course, if inwardly you are this angry and vengeful kind of person, the best thing actually is not to hide it. Okay. The best thing is really to be in it, because it's the alignment that is so important. And what happens is eventually, because I say all roads lead to Om, what happens is eventually light comes in. You get so tired of being angry. You get so tired of feeling separate. You get so tired of the whole world just passing you by and not feeling loved or capable of loving, that you start to, allow light in, and the light just has its way with you. So when we are in this work, of course, we want to encourage everyone to come into the truth of themselves, where they are recognizing that they are love. They are the consciousness of God. They are the creative life force energy. And if we can stay aligned with that, we get to experience connection and the power of that rather than separation.
Okay. So again, getting back to the manifesting, and that you described very, very well on a spiritual, on a loving, on an inner level, and it would be the love, developing that love for one's, acknowledging the love that we have for ourselves, bringing it out. So we can manifest that. Can we use that way of thinking, that energy, sending that energy out to the universe to do other things with it? Or is it just about spiritual stuff? Can you manifest material things or tangible things or people or situations in life? Yeah.
Universal law is universal law. It applies to everything.
Okay.
There's no separation in universal law. And that the laws of energy are universal. A lot of people know it as the law of attraction, right? Energy is always seeking out other energy just like itself. And whatever you put your focus on will expand. And that's typically how it's taught. What's really important to understand and to remember is that is taking place 24/7, regardless if it's what you might consider to be positive or negative. it always manifests as experience.
That's how I see things. The purpose of life is to experience all things on all levels. Mm-hmm. And we have free choice and free will to experience whatever it is that we want to experience.
That's right.
Recognizing and accepting, though, in the purpose, in order to know something, we also need to know it from both sides. So the rule, as I would see it, is the purpose of life is to experience all things on all levels. And what we do one way, we must do equally the opposite. This, in order for us to understand something, we need to see both sides.
Well, I think that we already know that both sides exist. I'm at the point where I know that I want to experience some things and not other things. I know that whatever I need in order to continue to expand will come to me. That's the role of my higher self. It's constantly creating opportunities for me to incorporate what I have learned and still need to both strengthen, exercise, and remember. And typically it's much more about remembering than learning anything. Then I'm confident that I will be given those opportunities. That's what I'm doing here. So I also know, because I've been given free will, and that's what differentiates this existence as a human from others, is that this free will that we've been given gives us the opportunity to choose experiences. And as I said, I'm at the point where I'm pretty clear about the experiences that I want to experience. And so I know that if I am doing my daily spiritual practice, every time I get a glimpse of life through the closest possibility that I have of looking through the eyes of God, I'm not seeing contrast. I'm only seeing how love can manifest, how and what it has the capabilities of creating. And I know that this is for the highest good of all. So my personal quest is really striving to look through those eyes of God whenever I can reach, that place. And I don't always have a clear view, but I know that if I keep searching for what love would say, what love would do, then I can get closer and closer. And I'm not inferring even for a second that I've ever been in that full view of what, looking through the eyes of God.
It would be a profound experience.
Yes. But I have experienced the ecstasy that we experience when we align truly with self-love, when we have taken the action that we suddenly get to experience that intense level of complete freedom. It is ecstasy. And I know, so just comparatively, so I've had 2 near-death experiences. And I remember one in particular that was the most dramatic, was where I realized that I had a choice to come back to the earth plane or to stay in these celestial energies. And I remember coming back and just thinking how truly free I felt in that space And there've only been a couple of times as walking on this earth that I've experienced that. And both times it is ecstasy, feeling that level of freedom. It cannot be explained.
I can sense it from you, though.
Mm-hmm.
As the empath I am, I can feel that.
It's so compelling. You just want to be. That's it. You just want to be. It is the most incredible feeling.
It is. You teach ways of thinking and living. You do it by one-on-one, and you do it by group.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about your one-on-one type counseling. I think I had one of those already today, but tell me a little bit about it, and share what you do with your clients. Well,
sure.
Yep.
So when I'm working with a client, I'm working intensively with them for 30 days. I know in order for me to support their development of new neural pathways, that we have to have consistency for at least 30 days. So what that entails is every week I speak with them via telephone, and it starts out immediately where I am in contact with their higher self, and their higher self is what lays out the entire session. So the first part is the development through conversation, where I'm getting the messages from their higher self in terms of giving guidance and teaching. Teaching is a huge part of what I do with my clients. And then the second part is where I'm actually given a process to take them through that allows us to enter into the capsules of energy that are in their energy field that need to be released. I never know what it is. Every person is completely unique and different. But what I also know is that once we've opened that capsule, that energy, we need to maintain a vibrational frequency that allows it to continue to come out. And so I'm in correspondence with them every single day via email, where they describe for me what they're experiencing, and I support them energetically with that. More in-depth, giving them, understanding of what's happening and how to maintain their vibrational frequency. And I record every single session because that's part of their homework, aside from processes that I'm giving them all the time. Re-listening to something is the most incredible way for us to affect our energy field. So if you're listening to something of a very high vibrational field, there's this scientific phenomenon. It's an energetic phenomenon. It's called entrainment. And it's when something of a higher vibrational frequency and its magnetic force, becomes the magnet for lower vibrational energies. So it actually pulls energy up. So I help to create that entrainment, and re-listening to these recordings anchors it in. But also what happens, and this, I use the metaphor of a golf course. If you've ever played golf, you know that you can play the same course every single day and the experience is different. And so when we continue to listen to these recordings, what happens is as your vibrational frequency raises, you now have access to different parts of that recording that you didn't hear the first time, the second time, or the third time. because it's energetically revealed to you. So that's my one-on-one.
Tell me about your groups or
My groups are theme related, always teaching self-love and heart shifts. And by the way, I also have a Facebook group called Self-Love and Heart Shifts. And I welcome everyone to join me there.
Right. Okay.
So my group coaching is that. It is very theme oriented. Every month they get a different theme, which is a spiritual lesson, a spiritual teaching. And then I give them mid-month, I'll give them a deeper dive into it, typically in a video. And then we come together at the end of the month and we discuss it. And we see how it has unfolded in their lives. Because the moment that we put our focus on anything, the energy expands. So your higher self creates opportunity for you to experience it. And so we always wrap it up and we see just how that process has unfolded for them.
And I have another question.
Yeah.
How does somebody get in the high vibe tribe? How do you get there?
Yeah. So the high vibe tribe, is number one. It's my, it's a group on Facebook, the High Vibe Tribe.
Yep.
And the High Vibe Tribe is made up of people who are at work, raising their own vibrational frequencies so that they can have a greater impact on the world. When we start to recognize truly that we are not here for ourselves, we are here to create a vibrational frequency that is for the good of all, and of course our earth, then we come together, and what happens is the intensity of that vibrational frequency becomes greater and greater, which allows it to expand more and more and more. And so the High Vibe Tribe is about coming together as a community with the intention to continually raise our own vibrational frequency to impact the world around us in a very positive and loving way.
If somebody wants to get in touch with you, find out more about you, how do they do it, Marcy?
The best way is to reach out to me through my website, which is heartshiftcoach.com.
Yes.
And you can contact me directly there, or just come to Facebook, join Self-Love and Heart Shifts, join the High Vibe Tribe. And yeah, I'm always open to connecting and learning and just really being the support that we all need in order to expand so that more love can extend through each of us.
When I was a guest on your podcast, I was deeply impressed by the type of person you are.
Thank you.
Today on my podcast, I feel so honored to have such a fine, beautiful, spiritual being on my show. Thank you so much. Well, I feel like it too. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you, Robert. And thank you for having me as your guest. I'm also honored. And it's my greatest joy to share what I've been shown and what I've experienced and what I know we are all here to experience and more.
I don't know where the time's gone. Marcy, you've been absolutely fabulous. You've kept my attention. I know everybody's been sitting on the edge of their seats, listening to what you have to say. I'd also like to thank Lucia Marie Kloster from joining us also from all the way from Vermont. Thank you for joining us on WWRS. Before I say goodbye, I just have a couple of requests. If you are watching us on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Incidentally, subscriptions are complimentary. It means they don't cost anything. So just press that subscription button. It'll really help us a lot. And you can find us on Apple, Spotify, and any other major podcast site. If you want to find me personally, you can see me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and my website, www.robertlindsymilne.com. That's it, everybody. Thanks very much. Had a great time. And by the way, be good, be safe, and above all, be kind. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.